My fiancé cheated with my brother on our engagement day, and I cut them off. Now, after 2 years of no contact, my family is forcing me to raise their child. My brother Ron was only 2 years behind us, and my fiancé Kim was in the same year. Since Ron and I were close when we were younger, we were in a friendship group together, which implied that he was also friends with Kim. In my senior year, I asked him to prom, and that's when we started dating. We had been together for over 7 years by the time we even ended up attending the same college. I proposed to her at that time. We became engaged after she said yes. That day, I threw a surprise party for our families and a few close friends, who came over in the evening to celebrate the big announcement before we shared it on social media. I didn't notice Ron looking genuinely distressed and making a lot of effort to put on a happy face since I was too busy enjoying what had occurred to me. I didn't know that Kim had been gone for over 15 minutes after she excused herself to visit the restroom, nor did I notice him go outside to smoke in the backyard. However, I then noticed that Kim had not been seen for over 10 minutes, so I went to the restroom to see how she was doing. She wasn't there, which surprised me. My instinct prompted me to look in the backyard, and when I did, I witnessed my brother having sex with my fiancé, which saved me from having a horrible marriage. As soon as they both left the room, I started to have a dreadful gut sensation, one after the other, and I was shocked to see that kind of thing. It took me a few seconds to respond and yell at them, which caused them to finally split apart. They made the obviously fruitless attempt to appear innocent. I knew the truth since I'd seen what they were up to. I was experiencing a lot of different emotions as I started to move back into the house. Even the specific words they were trying to say to me escaped my memory. They were attempting to speak with me, but I had fully lost consciousness and wasn't even paying attention to them, as I now realized. Without even waiting for them to speak, I entered the living room with them trailing behind me. I told our families what I had witnessed and that, regrettably, the engagement was called off because Ron lacked loyalty and Kim was a terrible cheater. Ron was trying to console Kim when she started weeping, and I became so irritated at that I told them to leave my house. Kim and I had been living together at the time, but the lease had my name on it. She attempted to argue with me, saying that since she hadn't done anything wrong, she would not be leaving. We used to split the rent. Naturally, I was shocked by that because I believed that having sex with your fiancé's brother is the epitome of wrong. She continued, however, by explaining that she had only agreed to go out with me during our high school years because she needed a date for prom, and that although she thought she loved me in college, she didn't truly feel that way. And in the last several years, following our graduation, she came to the realization that she was falling in love with Ron rather than me. It seems that she had come to the realization that our differences prevented our relationship from ever working after moving in with me. She believed that I was an obsessive worker who was incapable of enjoying life, and that my possessiveness and control were excessive. Since I don't really put work before my personal life and I work a normal amount, I had no idea what she was talking about. Since I think I'm a lot of fun, I'm not really sure what it means to be having fun. I don't even want to discuss her accusations that I was possessive and controlling, since I don't think I ever was that way with her. Instead, I believe she was looking for an excuse to end our relationship. She had therefore started to independently validate the many of those that she had generated in her own mind. Nevertheless, she continued to tell me that over the course of a few years, she had been discussing her issues with me with Ron and had gradually begun to fall in love with him. They hadn't even been together, really. However, becoming engaged only served to highlight her ineptitude. Upon observing that Ron appeared rather distressed and had to exit the room, she interpreted it as a signal and proceeded to visit him in the backyard. Their first kiss came after they had confided in one another about their affections for one another. They claimed that because she and I had been together for such a long time, neither of them wanted to hurt me, which was the only reason why they had been holding back for so long. Ron had been contemplating along the same lines that perhaps he never had a chance with Kim because she loved me so much, and that was the only reason Kim had decided to marry me. She didn't think he would make a move on her because he loved his brother, despite the fact that she did continuously complain to him about me. However, after exchanging words in the backyard, they came to the conclusion that her engagement to me would never work because both she and he were really in love. Kim then expressed a desire to end our engagement and focus on building a genuine bond with my brother. Our families were astounded, as were the few friends we had invited. I was ashamed that this was taking place, but I had no other option. Thankfully, it appeared that her parents were sensible individuals, as they expressed regret to me for their daughter's actions and granted her freedom to pursue her interests. They really didn't want to talk to her right now, though. However, because they actually began to support the two of them, my parents ended up being the worst parents ever. They made an effort to reassure me that Kim's breakup with me was entirely normal and that I shouldn't take it personally. As these things occur, all I could do was make an effort to move on. They even anticipated that I would encourage Kim and Ron's relationship. They become irate and tell me that I've always been a difficult person to deal with when I try to point out how ridiculous they sound. Ron was much more laid back than I was, so it was not shocking at all that Kim had chosen to accompany him. I did as they instructed. They both seemed to agree that since Kim was the complete opposite of me and had always been more like my brother, they had known that the relationship could not work out and that I was too tightly wound. I therefore began to fear that maybe my whole family was insane. In any case, I was so angry that I didn't want to argue or try to explain my feelings to them any longer. I guess my parents knew that Ron had feelings for Kim, so all they wanted to do was celebrate the fact that Kim and Ron were finally together. They were also making a lot of effort to make me feel like I was to blame for the breakdown of my own relationship and that everything that had been said about me was true. So I guess that justifies whatever she had done. At least my friends seemed to be on my side, and they helped me pack a few of my things, and one of them let me spend the next couple of weeks with them. Since I didn't want to go home now, I guess I could say that after the day of the engagement, I didn't have to see any of them ever again. But that wouldn't be true. I had to go back several times to gather my things, since I had been living in that house for a really long time, pretty much ever since I graduated. And one evening was not enough to get all my things. She returned the money that I had paid for rent that month, and every time I would go to collect my things over the next few weeks, Ron was always there with her, and it just upset me to no end. Anyway, after I had collected my things and she had returned the money and the ring, I decided to cut ties with them. I had been in touch with my parents on and off for a few weeks, and I couldn't believe that they were actually supportive of what Ron had done. They told me that if Kim was not happy with me, it was completely up to her what she wanted to do and who she wanted to be with. And if it was Ron that she wanted to be with, it was not exactly wrong of him to take her up on that offer. If they loved each other, it didn't matter if she had cheated on me or if he had betrayed me. They belonged together and they were going to be supportive of the relationship no matter how I felt and no matter how much I denied it. They continued to bring up whatever Kim had said about me being controlling, possessive, never having enough time for her, and not knowing how to have fun. It had come to a stage where I had actually started questioning any of those things. So I spoke to a couple of my friends, and these were people who had always been honest with me since we had been friends from school. They have known me and Kim for a really long time, so I could trust on them to be honest with me. And they informed me that everything she had claimed was a lot of crap, and she was merely coming up with that stuff to excuse her affair. I worked to a respectable level, and they confirmed it, and I cared about my work just like any other individual does. Not more, and certainly not less. And I was quite a fun person to be around. Maybe I wasn't always the life of the party like my brother was, but it didn't matter since I knew how to let loose, and that was all. Besides, things like that shouldn't really matter in a partnership. It wasn't like her life grew boring or tough because of me. As for controlling and possessive, my friends adamantly rejected it, and that simply made me believe it the more firmly that my family and Kim would. Just attempting to gaslight me into believing that I was all of these things, and that's why I deserved to be left the way that I had been. But ultimately I stopped saying anything to them, and I managed to take my family out of my life as well. I heard from a few people that Ron and Kim had married each other in a secret, intimate wedding around a year after we had separated, and I honestly didn't really feel anything. One more year has passed since then, and for almost 2 years I have had no communication with my family. I've accomplished a lot in life and have taken many trips, so I don't even feel like I've been let down. But when my mother contacted me last week, I initially said no and even blocked the number she was using to call. However, that didn't deter her. Even after she switched to a different number, I didn't answer when I learned it was her. She persisted in attempting to get through, and after nearly 4 hours, she hadn't stopped phoning every other minute, so I took the decision to answer. When I phoned her back, she was crying, and I was extremely perplexed since I had no idea why she was crying. I was pretty irritated at the time. I chose to ask her what was wrong rather than raging at her as I had prepared to do, and she informed me that my brother and Kim had apparently been in an accident and both had fallen into a coma. It had been a horrible accident. The two of them were in bad shape after being struck by a truck. I'm not joking at all. I had deep sympathy for them. And I told my mom to persevere because, no matter what they had done to me, this was an extremely terrible thing. And this was definitely not what I had anticipated. My dad was a little more composed and informed me that they were phoning to ask me to see them so they could have some support at this difficult time. My mother was crying uncontrollably on the phone, so she had to hand it off to him. Since Ron and Kim both had health insurance, I didn't even know what they meant when they said they needed some kind of support. They had each other for emotional support, so I'm not sure what I could do. I didn't understand why they wanted me to be there for them, to be honest, because we haven't spoken for the past 2 years. Suddenly, everything changed. However, my dad explained what he meant a few minutes later, and I'm still in disbelief over it. It seems that they wanted me to watch Kim and Ron's 2-month-old son in order to help them out. Both the pregnancy and its course had been meticulously documented. The fact that Kim and Ron were in Oklahoma during the pregnancy helped to ease the secrets. When they learned, he was working on a project there, and they made the decision to stay for the whole pregnancy, as well as the duration of their relationship. Everything was well because they had friends and some relatives nearby. In fact, their family had flown down to witness the baby's birth. As Kim and Ron had only returned a few weeks prior, everything had been deliberately kept under wraps so they could inform everyone of their wishes. However, following this horrific catastrophe, they were now in the hospital. After hearing this, I was genuinely stunned and didn't know how to respond. However, my dad informed me that although they had hired a sitter to watch the baby for the time being, they also needed to consider long-term solutions. It seems that after speaking with the medical staff, Kim and Ron were given a 50-50th chance of surviving. My dad had called to let me know that they wanted me to assist in raising the child in case something happened to them. He wanted me to come visit the baby and try to establish some sort of bond with him because he felt that this was the best course of action. I told him right away that was foolish of an expectation to have of me and that I would not be doing anything along those lines. His suggestion was troublesome in every way possible and I did not want to be involved. Nevertheless, rather than taking that, he became irrationally angry, accusing me of being naive and self-centered and saying that Kim and Ron were in a coma and that I should give them some thought before saying no. He emphasized that, above all, my nephew needs me and the family needs me right now. I must therefore be available to everyone, rather than clinging to past grievances. It's not as though I reject out of resentment, though. I say no because it seems strange. In these kind of situations, I don't want to have to get to know my nephew. It wasn't until a few days ago that I even realized I had a nephew, and now I have to take responsibility for him, treat him like my own, and consider looking after him in the future in case his parents pass away. I'm not even interested in getting into his parents' tale at this time. That's a whole other topic. In the end, though, I really don't want to see anyone from the family since I'm in a mess with my thoughts at the moment. And I don't believe I want to be forced to try to get close to a child whose odds of becoming an orphan are currently 50-50ths. I'm just not willing to see anyone right now. I'm not sure how to express it. In addition, my parents have been arguing that this is unfair and that I should see my nephew in the hospital so that I can support everyone. I truly don't know what to do at the moment, and it's been making me feel like a complete jerk. I am the one that is unwilling to visit my nephew while his parents are in the hospital. First update. I appreciate all of your advice and comments very much. I'm not sure why they wanted to hide the pregnancy from everyone, to be honest. At the time, I suppose all they wanted was some solitude. Still, I was quite taken aback. We split up only a few years ago and already they're married and have a child. It took me a bit to comprehend the news, but now that I've done so, I think it would be best for me to remain away for the time being. They were in an accident and are currently in the hospital. I understand that this is not about me. And to be honest, they have my sincerest thoughts and best wishes. Since my parents and their child depend on them, I sincerely hope that they recover completely and are able to resurrect. However, I have faith that everything will work out. However, I also have to consider my own mental well-being. Moreover, I don't think that taking on my nephew's responsibilities will make things any better, especially in light of the fact that his mother was once my true love. Therefore, I don't think it would be wise for me to try getting close to him. Furthermore, I'm not even sure if his parents would have approved of that. The majority of the comments on this post supported my choice to not go see or meet them just now, as it's not like I have to. There are individuals watching out for them. I have to stand up for myself right now because I don't even know what to tell my parents, so I haven't been answering any of their calls or messages lately. I've attempted to convey my perspective to them, but they simply don't comprehend it. It's really useless to talk to them, since I don't think they can possibly comprehend what I'm going through or what I went through 2 weeks ago. And I've made the decision to ignore them until I can no longer stand it. I'm hoping that it will divert me sufficiently from whatever is going on and that side of the family because I have my own life and work to attend to. Today my parents have chosen to come visit me. They must have become weary of me after my last 2 weeks of disregard for them. Since it's the weekend, I was unable to even avoid having to talk to them about work. I'm glad the conversation happened and that something useful was discussed, but I'm not really satisfied with how things transpired. They arrived in the morning, and I had to let them in. They made no effort to strike up a conversation beforehand. The reason for their visit: they claimed to have noticed that I had been ignoring them, but that was no longer possible because they were here. They were demanding explanations for my actions and called me selfish for not even bothering to check in on them before leaving them to handle family matters. They thought that what had occurred to me with Tim and Ron 2 years prior was wrong, but they were in love and there was nothing I could have done to stop it from happening. They did not see any need to feel bad about supporting my brother and Kim, telling me that I should have been happy that I learned about their emotions for each other on the day of the engagement itself. And after we were married, they said that even if I felt deceived by them, I shouldn't be acting in this way because it's already unfortunate that my brother and Kim were involved in an accident. The last thing the family needs is for me to be so egotistical and callous that after everything they have been through, I cannot even extend my forgiveness. They were acting as though I should just forgive them since they were in an accident and it was their karma, which kind of astonished me. I don't need to bother anymore because of this. I don't know whether that's how things operate, so I remained silent and allowed them to talk freely. I honestly don't think that interrupting them and starting a shouting match would have helped, so I was holding off on saying anything until the very end. I should therefore use that as a cue to try to patch things up with them, if nothing else, since it's impossible to predict what will occur at this moment. In the event that I have to take over, the doctors have still advised us to wait it out and think I may begin by attempting to get to know my nephew. That's what was truly bothering me at the time. When I eventually broke through, I said that it would still be really strange if I chose to visit the infant and attempt to get to know my nephew, even if, in a hypothetical scenario, I consented to take over as they say. Then, as Kim and Ron began to recover, they made the decision that they no longer wanted me to be near the infant. Where would I be then? I would grow attached to the baby right quickly, and then it would be taken away. Furthermore, the way my parents were acting, as if Kim and Ron had already left, was strange. The family should, in my opinion, have some hope instead of spending their time with their children in the hospital, even if there was only a 50% chance that they would live. The physicians had given them a 5,050 chance of life. I could not even understand the point of their arguing with me while they were here squandering their time. I suggested to them that they return to the hospital and make better use of their time, but they seemed insulted by the suggestion that they were wasting it. They claimed that they had approached me only because they believed that I was the only person who could care for my nephew, just as my brother had. They also assured me that they would have been pleased if I had made the effort to see them and get to know my nephew when Kim and Ron came around. They did say that, but their tone betrayed a lack of confidence. We haven't spoken for the last 2 years, and we ended badly, so they shouldn't have. They have never shown regret for what they did, and I seriously doubt that they would be pleased if I made an effort to get to know the baby. In any case, I informed my parents that, for the time being at least, I was not going to visit them. Even though I knew no one was interested in my feelings, I still wanted some time to process them. I had never troubled them and had kept out of their lives. It was now my turn for them to show me some consideration and reciprocate. After that, I assumed they would debate some more, but fortunately, they appeared to get my point and decided to give up. I advised them not to hold out much hope, but they insisted that they would be waiting for me to arrive. I really do hope and pray that Kim and Ron can heal fully as quickly as possible, as I mentioned in my statement. And because I didn't want to seem callous, I thought it was important to mention that I even gave over a box of chocolates that I had purchased a few days prior. Originally, I had planned to give it to a friend of mine who had assisted me with something, but at that same moment, I decided that it would be best if I gave it to them in honor of Kim and Ron. I informed them that this was the best I could do for them, and that they should get this box from my parents when they visit, but I was only willing to go so far. Regardless, they're gone now, and I feel a lot lighter, so I suppose this was something I needed at one point. Update 3. Since I haven't written on this blog in almost 6 months, I feel like I should give everyone an update. I know everyone is curious about what transpired with Kim and Ron, and the good news is they made it through. Fortunately, a few weeks following my parents' visit, they finally made a full recovery once they began to stir. Before they started to come to their senses, I had actually taken the trouble to visit them in the hospital, where I also got to meet my nephew. I found it really tough to see them in that state, and seeing my nephew was even more challenging. However, I completed it, and I suppose that's what gave me the sense of closure I was missing for a while. I am thus appreciative of what I accomplished. My brother and Kim even texted me a few months back to express their gratitude that I had visited them and got to know my nephew. They finally apologized to me after nearly 2 years, saying they wished our relationship had ended differently, but that's okay because I've moved on. Not that I've forgiven them, mind you, that is untrue, and I don't believe I am capable of forgiving them. However, I've learned to accept what has happened, and that's probably all I can do. And that's the finest thing they ought to anticipate from me. We can all live with it, I suppose. We haven't precisely spoken since, but that's okay with me. In any case, I assured them that everything would be all right. That is my ideal scenario. Even without my family, I'm content enough. Not too long ago, I also started dating again, and this time it's serious. After my breakup with Kim, I had a few flings and brief relationships, but I guess this is the first time that I've truly had such strong feelings, and I think this time will work out nicely. Thus, I'm crossing my fingers and feeling optimistic about the future. I appreciate you taking the time to stay updated about my life.